joined together for an extraordinary journey into the mystery of sound and consciousness and healing. What we're going to do is a group experience with creating a sound that comes out of an emotion. So let's everybody just go inside and get in touch with the feeling of appreciation, however that is for you. And just breathe into it and just make a sound that matches how you feel inside. That's all it is. Something's happening with people that show up at these events. It reminds me of the early days when I was doing psychotherapy and I was amazed at the transformation and the beauty of the human being to step into the unknown. So we're going to go into a cave and it'll be a little spooky because there's very little light down there. But the being who resides there is in the darkness. Darkness is not evil. The moon is as important as the sun. And we're going into the darkness to commune with a knowledge and an intelligence that will sing through my voice. And we'll see what it is. I have no idea what will come forward. Yeah, be careful. Slippery. So the being that I just channeled was enshrouded in darkness because he lives in the earth. He had a golden aura, and he is very, very ancient. And he has seen many human civilizations come and go. And he was deeply saddened and dismayed by how humans treat the earth and the beings of the earth. And his message is that human beings must honor the earth or they will not survive. Early on, I started having impressions of mountains and the Himalayas and what I later recognized to be Tibet. And what I experienced in a very primal, direct way was that I was deeply connected to Tibet and to Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism into Tibet in the 7th century, and also to Yeshe Sogyo, who was his tantric practitioner that joined him. I was already initiated into Buddhism, and I had various relationships with other teachers. Yapsang was the most incredible encounter that I've had in Tibetan Buddhism. I've had some pretty extraordinary encounters. He was a peer. He was a guru in the sense of the true guru. Truest guru is the one that resides in each of us. But a true guru is someone who is a bridge between the worlds, and he can move back and forth between the worlds. And so I can go to him and ask him questions, and he refines various understandings I have from his perspective. The nuns in Tibet are an extraordinary force. I had no knowledge that nuns chanted the way they chant. And so I remember going to the Gyaltsen nunnery, which is very remote, and hearing them sing, and it was like this.
I was drunk. I was drunk on the chants coming out of these nuns. And these are the nuns of Gyaltsen. These are the ones we're recording.
These are Gyaltsen, yeah. And certain ones we've used like for the CD and stuff. Like you're familiar with this, for instance.
Right. It hit me like a ton of bricks. In this world of imbalance, nobody had ever bothered to record the voices of the women. Nobody knew the nuns chanted.
Because of that work that Judy envisioned and the CD was created and all the profits go back to the nuns, they were able to repair a wall that was a huge gap and expand the nunnery, make it much larger. They provided winter robes for all the nuns because they were threadbare. And 2 nuns could be sent to medical school. And that came out of this vision that Judy had to empower the nuns. And it's a beautiful expression of the feminine, because the feminine is about relationship. Well, the first time the feminine showed up for me as a reference point was after my episode when I was 18 in my uncle's pasture. I went into the Western mystical contemplative tradition very deeply. So I had these many numinous experiences with Mary, mother of Jesus. So my personal journey was, as I went deeper into mysticism, the Christian contemplative tradition, there was a place where there was kind of a dead end because it did not explain my experience that I had when I was 18, that mystical experience. So it took me into the East, and there I met these feminine archetypes, these goddesses in other traditions like Parvati, a sort of Shiva, and Sarasvati, and Lakshmi, and Kuan Yin, and all these goddesses. And I formed relationships with them through meditation. And my bhakti for these goddesses was so immense that when I was in their presence, I would be elevated. And then I look at women on the earth. And in India, still to this day, if the husband dies, sometimes the woman is supposed to, in certain castes, is supposed to jump onto the funeral pyre because she has no life left when the husband dies. And there are women that are given clitorectomies in Africa. So these horrendous things are taking place in this world against the feminine. So as I began to look at all this stuff, the political, social, the neurological, and the spiritual disempowerment of women, and my place as a man in the midst of all that, how do I come to terms with that? The pivotal point for me that pulled all of these different things together into one gestalt was when I met Judy Zion.
I called and I sounded like somebody calling John Lennon. I didn't know he sang. I knew he was some sort of a teacher. And I called and I left a message and I said, I have an amazing friend and I need to find the most amazing present. And I'm wondering if you could be the Christmas present for my friend. And it hadn't been, and I hung up the phone and thought, oh my God, you fool. And Tom called back. So we went up to where Tom was living at the time. Hello, how are you? Fine and dandy. And he unzips this suitcase and brings out this crystal bowl. And I was like, huh, I wonder what that is. Wonder what he's going to do with that thing. And he started making sound. And I went to another dimension. That was the first time my consciousness, my brain state had been altered by sound. And Tom said, I just need to tell you, I don't do this. I said, you don't do what? He said, I don't see people in my home. I don't do private sessions. I was like, my first thought was, well, then why did you do this? And said that, being me, why am I here? Why did you do this? He said, because the Hators told me to. There's a place on Route 1 where the Nottoway River crosses Route 1. And that was a bridge, I'm told, that my birth father worked on. And that's where he met my mother. We were on our way to visit relatives.
We lived in Norfolk, Virginia, and my grandmother and grandfather lived in Greensboro, North Carolina. So my mother and I and my brother were on the bus.
So I was in the back seat, and I just remember this coming alongside a bus and just looking over. There was a little boy in the window.
And I'm sitting by the big window, and I look down at a car.
And our eyes locked, and the cars moved at what I call flying formation. It could have been for 5 seconds, it could have been for 5 minutes. It seemed forever.
And so we're just hovering there, and I look down, and there's this girl who's about my age, and it was like, oh, hello.
Deep in his eyes, there was something. I knew that little boy was going to play guitar, and I knew that little boy was going to sing.
And then the car passes the bus.
And so I happened to write about it when I was writing my story for the Magdalene manuscript, because it struck my heart at such a deep level. But what happened was that when Tom read my story, he said, wow, that same thing happened to me when I was a little boy. I said, yeah, but I know exactly where I was. I know where I was on what road. He said, so do I. And we matched it up. And we thought, could this be?
Although the Hathors are androgynous beings, meaning balanced between male and female, how they view our current situation is that it is time that the feminine nature has to rise up in balance to the masculine in its expression here on Earth. Earth is held symbolically as feminine. We even call it Mother Earth. So the feminine is degraded and is held in lower esteem in many of our spiritual traditions because we have such disregard for the earth itself and the feminine.
So one of the myths in society is that everybody here, I don't sense any virgin births in this room. So all of us got here through sex. Our mother and father had coitus, and there was a big bang. And our culture says that it was a mad rush of the sperm to get to the egg. And the first sperm to get to the egg was the winner. And that's a very patriarchal, masculine view. But genetics is now discovering that it's not quite true. That the egg actually senses the approaching horde, sends out tentacles of information, and scans them before they arrive. So it's kind of like, And the cavalry's heading in. It's a race, and they've almost got it. The first one there wins. Yay, yay, yay! Gets the trophy of life. The egg is over here, and the guys are coming in a horde. And she says, "Wait a minute, boys. Just hold back. I'm not going to take you or you or you, not you, and God, definitely not you. Yes, you. Come on over." And she opens a molecular door, just big enough for the little guy to get in. Come into the inner sanctum, and let's merge. And from that moment, mitosis begins, and here we are. So the wisdom of the egg doesn't just take the first comer, so to speak. I didn't plan that pun, it honestly just happened, but when you find treasures, you must pick them up, unless there are strings attached. So you got here as an expression of feminine intelligence.
It was a cold, rainy night in Zurich, and Judy asked, would I see if I could bring forward Mary Magdalene? And this power came through that just throttled both of us. It was so amazing. I've worked with a lot of beings and of different traditions, and this one was like, wow. I don't know what this is, but this is power and intelligence.
What Magdalene was saying is that the time has come for the feminine to be raised up in balance to the male in a way differently than has been done in the past. Living in authenticity with each other in relationship. And speaking your truth no matter how difficult, no matter how embarrassing it is. And out of that cauldron, and it is a cauldron, it's like a furnace, because when you speak your truth, things that are not true get burned away. And in that process, both are elevated, the male and the female.
I believe that we were all on our own paths, and the path of alchemy was an internal one that you did yourself, for yourself. And Magdalene basically took the blinders off and said, well, there's another way to look at this, which is that you can engage in relationship as a path. And the alchemy can be shared between two people that are peers and travel together on this path to greater understanding and enlightenment. But fundamentally, at a deeper level, what her message is about is an urgent message, which is that if we are to survive, we must raise the feminine out of the ashes that we have created as a global culture for centuries, and have the two meet together, male and female together, not one above the other, but in equality, and with that union create a new world. I think the quest has actually ended, as I think about it in this moment. So I feel that the war between the human and spiritual part of me has ended. I've unified the two. That war is done. It's not that the learning has ended, but the tension between the human and the spiritual has ended. And the final piece of that is realizing that the boy who sang to the world, he had a misunderstanding. And his misunderstanding was that he could resolve the suffering of others. All he really needs to do is be a witness, because everyone is responsible for their own happiness. So as the boy who sang to the world has grown up, and he's no longer singing the hopes and dreams of people into existence,
He's singing a space that allows them to create that for themselves.
The lighting crew was exceptional this evening. Would like to thank the crew.
Yeah.